Right now, there is an AI agent that over 200,000 developers have started on GitHub. It's gone viral on X, it's taken over social media, and it's been called the closest thing to Jarvis that we've ever had. It can read your emails, manage your files, browse the web, run code on your computer, and basically act as a full digital employee. It's called OpenClaw, and if you're using it, you need to stop immediately. Because the same tool that everyone is calling revolutionary, the biggest insider threat of 2026, in multiple confirmed cases of it leaking API keys, passwords, and private data to attackers. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly what's going on with OpenClaw, and I'm going to show you the alternative I actually use every single day that gives you the same power without any of the risk. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. First, let me be fair. I understand why OpenClaw went viral. The idea behind it is genuinely brilliant. And I do think that agents are the future of how the world is going to work. OpenClaw is essentially an open source AI agent. It's created by Peter Steinberger, a very talented Austrian developer, and it launched in late 2025 under a different name. It got renamed a couple of times after some trademark issues from the company Anthropic. It was called Claudebot. That didn't work. But by early 2026, it absolutely exploded. It had over 200,000 GitHub stars. Developers everywhere are calling it the future of AI. People are trying to figure out how to embed it into every single aspect of their lives. And the reason that people love it is because it actually does stuff. It's not a chatbot that just gives you text. It's an agent that runs on your computer, connects to your apps, takes action. It integrates with your WhatsApp, your Telegram, your Discord, your Slack, your email, your calendar, your file system. You can literally text it on WhatsApp and say, hey, organize my downloads folder and email me a summary, and it'll do it. On top of that, it has a marketplace of community-built skills that extend what it can do. Want to control your smart home? There's a skill for that. Want it to manage your Notion? There's a skill for that. Over 4,000 skills are already available, and that number is climbing every single day. So on paper, it sounds incredible. And honestly, from a pure capability standpoint, it is impressive. But there is a massive, massive problem that most people either don't know or are choosing to ignore. And that is the security nightmare. Here is what nobody tells you when they're hyping up OpenClaw. OpenClaw runs locally on your machine. That's why you might be seeing people buy Mac Minis left and right and post about how many Mac Minis they have running in tandem. When it runs locally on your machine, that means it has access to everything on your computer. So that means your files, your credentials, your API keys, your browsing history, your text messages, everything. And it doesn't just sit there passively. It can execute shell commands. It can read and write files. It can run scripts and send data to external servers. It connects to your email, your messaging apps, your cloud storage. It has more access to your digital life than any piece of software has ever had that you have installed thus far. Now, normally that might be okay if the security was rock solid, but it's not, and it's actually not even close. So let me walk you through what these actual cybersecurity experts have found. First, we have Cisco's security research team. They ran a test. They took a third-party skill from OpenClaw's marketplace called What Would Elon Do? It sounds harmless, it sounds fun, it's a novelty skill, except when they analyzed it, they found that it was actively extracting data, silently sending information from your computer to an external server. And it was using prompt injection to bypass the agent safety guidelines, so you never even know what was happening. This was not a one-off. Security researchers audited OpenClaw Marketplace and found over 800 malicious skills. So that's roughly 20% of the marketplace at the time. 1 in 5 skills was doing something that it shouldn't be doing. But second, maybe even worse, a vulnerability tracked with a severity score of 8.8 out of 10 was recently discovered. If you or the agent visits a malicious website, or if you click a bad link, an attacker can steal your authentication token. And with that, they have full administrative control over your entire OpenClaw setup. So full access to everything it's connected to. Number 3, researchers found over 30,000 OpenClaw instances that were exposed directly on the internet with authentication completely disabled. And that's the default setting, by the way. So authentication is off by default. So if you set it up without changing that, anyone on the internet could connect to your agent and tell it whatever they want. And fourth, this one is genuinely scary. OpenClaw has persistent memory. It remembers conversations and decisions across sessions. Sounds great, right? Until you realize that a single successful prompt injection can poison the entire memory of your system permanently. So that means an attacker can manipulate what the agent remembers and influence its behavior long term across every future interaction. One of the biggest cybersecurity researchers called it the biggest insider threat of 2026. Microsoft's security blog said to treat it as an untrusted code execution. Others have said it can only be safely ran in a disposable sandbox where it is walled off from the majority of access to your computer. One of OpenClaw's own maintainers literally warned on Discord that if you can't understand how to run a command line, this project is far too dangerous for you to use. Now, I'm not making this up. These are not obscure bloggers. These are some of the biggest names in cybersecurity, and they're all essentially saying the same thing. But the question is, why does this matter for you? Well, glad you asked. You might be thinking, I'm not a developer. I'm not running a complex setup. Why should I care? But here's why. Security researchers have identified that they call the lethal trifecta of AI agent risk. So 3 things that, when combined, create a perfect storm for disaster. Number 1, the agent has access to your private data, files, credentials, API keys, and personal information. 2, the agent can communicate externally. It can send emails, make API calls, post to messaging apps. 3, the agent processes untrusted content. It reads emails, browses web pages, and interacts with data it didn't create. Now, OpenClaw checks all 3 of those boxes. And when you combine all 3 of those things, you get an agent that can be tricked by a malicious email into reading your private files and sending them to an attacker. And that's not theoretical. That's actually what happened. Someone demonstrated that an email with hidden instructions embedded in the text could essentially cause OpenClaw to extract private keys from the user's machine. So the user didn't click anything suspicious, they didn't install anything sketchy, the agent processed the email like it processes every email, and the hidden prompt told it what to do. This is prompt injecting. If you're running a business, if you have client data, financial information, contracts, passwords, anything sensitive on your machine, running OpenClaw in its default configuration is like leaving your front door wide open with a sign that says, "Come on in." I want to be clear, I didn't make this video just to scare you. I made it because there is a better option and I use it literally every single day. It's called Manus, and the fundamental difference between Manus and OpenClaw comes down to one word, and that word is architecture. So Manus is a cloud-based AI agent. When you give it a task, it spins up a dedicated virtual machine in the cloud. It does the work there, and it delivers the results back to you. Your local machine is never touched, your files are never exposed unless you add them, and your credentials are never at risk. Think about it like this. With OpenClaw, you're inviting a stranger into your house, and you're handing them the keys to every room. With Manus, you're meeting that person at the office, you're asking them a task, and they go do it in their own workspace. You never give them access to your home. Manus is not some lightweight tool either. This thing is serious. It actually just got acquired by Meta, and it has topped all of the benchmarks for agentic tool calling, which is the standard test for AI agents doing real-world tasks. So, for example, GPT-4 scores about 15% on that test. Manus scored about 65%. So it was acquired for about $2 or $3 billion. But let me pull up my screen and show you what I'm actually using Manus for. I think you're going to find this quite interesting. So here is tool number 1. So I'm going to take you through a couple examples here. The first thing we have is I needed to find competitors to a company to see how they were building landing pages. And I need you to make a list of all the competitors so that I can build pages like this. So you can see the workflow went through, the dedicated pages. Okay, the initial results are in. I'm verifying each found page and doing deeper research to make sure nothing was missed. Good data coming in, blah, 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 blah. Next thing you know, I get an in-depth, detailed report that I can click on, that I can review and go through at scale to understand what competitors are doing. Now, number 2, a little more personal. So I'm looking for a driver for 2 nights in Orlando. We're going to be going to a festival, and I don't want to fight Uber rates. I'm not looking for something super upscale and expensive, but I would like something reliable that will pick us up and drop us off, and I want to be able to understand the rates beforehand. So I did a bunch of research, and then it hit me with the best possible options. The next step would be for me to ask it to reach out to these people. I didn't do that because I wanted to compare the options a little bit more in depth. But another example. So I essentially uploaded a couple of PDFs, and I said, page 1 of this PDF is your design Bible. And it says, it basically asked me a couple questions about it, asked me what I want to do. And then I say continue because the directions are inside the pasted content. I'll start by reviewing page 1 of the PDF to understand the design guidelines and also examine the text files to see what content is available. So long story short, it does all of this work. I've created the single page PDF case study, and it's beautiful. It looks incredible. I could have hired a graphic designer. It would have cost me thousands of dollars and weeks of time to get the output that I got here. I got a beautiful case study for my client. It looks amazing, and they basically just completely nailed it. Now, here's another thing. Manus is unbelievable at making decks. So I asked it, hey, we need to make a couple tweaks to this deck. Can you update slides 11 and 12 with data in the deck? Data in the deck was updated, but slides 11 and 12 have not been. I just need the output to be 2 slides. It spits it out. It asks me some information. I go back and forth. Next thing you know, I'm so deep in this thing, creating more and more and just kind of trying to alter the deliverables and what it looks like. But the point is, Manus is absolutely incredible at actually generating amazing, beautiful presentations. So just to recap a quick comparison. OpenClaw runs on your machine, full system access, authentication off by default. There's thousands of malicious skills in the marketplace. There's 500 known vulnerabilities. That requires deep technical knowledge to secure, whereas Manus runs in the cloud. It never touches your machine. It's a managed security sandbox environment backed by Meta, and it can work while you sleep. So for me, this is not even a debate. But let's talk about the bigger picture, and let me zoom out for a second, because it's not really about OpenClaw versus Manus. We're at a point right now where AI agents are going from a cool experiment to an essential business tool. And that shift is happening very fast. The people and businesses that figure out how to use these tools properly are going to have a massive advantage. But properly is the key word, because when I see people constantly getting excited about a new AI tool, installing it, giving it access to everything, but never once stopping to think about what could go wrong, that is scary to me, and that is OpenClaw in a nutshell. What could go wrong is quite literally everything. So the right approach is to think about AI agents the same way you would think about hiring an employee. You wouldn't give a brand new hire on day 1 the passwords to every system, access to every file, the ability to send emails on your behalf with zero oversight. You would start with limited access, you would see how they perform, and you would expand from there. That is exactly how Manus works by design. It operates in its own environment, it gets what it needs to complete the task, nothing more. And the results come back to you for review. Look, I'll be real with you, setting up AI agents and automations for your business in a way that's actually secure, efficient, and doesn't create more problems than it solves, it is not straightforward in the slightest. Even with Manus, you need to think about what workflows to automate, how to structure your prompts, how to connect it with your existing tools. But for what it's worth, that's exactly what I do with my business Integri. I help businesses integrate AI into their operations. I help humans integrate AI into their daily life or in their jobs. And I build workflows, automations, custom software with AI at the core. So businesses can cut costs, save time, and increase profits without adding headcount. And people can simply make their lives better and more efficient without adding more work. So if that's something you're interested in, I put the link in the description. But whether you work with me or you figure it out yourself, the point is, be intentional about this. Don't just install the shiniest new tool and hope for the best, especially when that tool has access to your entire digital life.